So I'd say it's probably been 6-7-ish months since I've made a video, done anything YouTube related, except for watch it. I've had a bunch of stuff change over the last couple months, just life-wise and stuff. Clearly, we're in a totally different car now. I figured I'd catch you guys up on, and hopefully, in the next month or two, we will be buying a house closer towards Atlanta, but more on that later. So first thing to kind of get you guys like back on track, I have sold Relina, the FC09, so that's gone. I still have Ruth, I still have Tessa. Ruth runs, I drove her home a couple weeks ago. I need to do some more carb tuning stuff and really get it kind of finalized. It's about there, it's about 80-90% there before I'd start actually going out and doing like bike night rides and stuff like that. But so that's good. The biggest reason why I sold Relina, the Jeep that I used to have, which you guys have seen a couple times, used to be okay for what I was driving it for. Driving kind of to and from Athens from where I live now, and it eventually got to the point where it was okay because it was my only vehicle, but slowly just, it was an old tired 4-cylinder and it was killing gas mileage. Not to mention the Jeeps are flying bricks anyways. So I started looking online for another car. I had a buddy of mine let me drive his E46 4-door, and that was fun. E46 is BMW, his was a 330i, and took it up to the mountains one weekend, had a really good time, and didn't realize that cars are a lot of fun up in the mountains, and is about 1 billion times less stressful than being on a motorcycle, just for the simple fact of not having to stress about stuff being in the road or adverse weather conditions. So from that point forward, I started looking for a BMW, and I really wanted a 2-door, I wanted a coupe. So started searching and found a guy who had one listed in Atlanta for $4,500. Said he would accept trades. It was a 2004 2-door coupe, 6-speed manual, and just asked him, would you take the Jeep? We kind of traded back and forth on negotiations, and it just eventually ended up being straight trade. Swapped the two vehicles, and then 8 days later, somebody rear-ended me and totaled it. So I took the insurance money from that. I bought the car back, and then I went down to Florida, it wasn't quite Tampa, it was like on the outskirts of Tampa. And I picked up a 2005 version, a 330 Ci, but it was a ZHP edition, which is essentially, it's a special edition for the sake that it has there's a different trim package for it, a couple other trim options and stuff, but it's essentially a limited edition base model, but not an M3. You guys have seen that before, I think. Bought that, and then found out a couple weeks later, because I was trying to diagnose some issues with it with head gasket, so we switched head gasket. Well, as of, I guess it was probably April, I started looking for a wagon. I wanted to get the benefit of what the ZHP was, and 4 doors plus cargo, and something a little bit more unique with everything combined. But the idea was to transfer all the ZHP stuff into the wagon. Well, I found this. It's a 2001. It's a 325 IT, which is their wagon model designation. 228,000 miles on it. It had an automatic that was garbage. It kept going into limp mode. It was horrible. And bought it with the intent to swap the ZHP over, so that I have a ZHP wagon. The day after I bought this, and it was just unfortunate based on scheduling, but the day after I bought the wagon, we found out the ZHP block was bad, and it essentially meant that motor was unusable for my practicality's sake. And this was after we did a head gasket. So at that point, the plan became to still ZHP swap the wagon, but that meant that I'd have to sacrifice my 04, which was totaled from the rear end, and it was totaled because of, fender movement kind of stuff. It wasn't, they didn't bend it in half. So I pulled the motor and transmission from the 04, the silver 330 CI. I pulled all the electronics, the steering wheel, the cams, the wheels that I had on the ZHP, and some other smaller bits and bobs like trim pieces, like, between the two 6-speeds that I had, pieces that were better between the two, and swapped everything over into the wagon. So now I drive a ZHP 6-speed manual wagon. I now have two 330 CI parts cars, for lack of a better way to explain it. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with them. The original goal was to sell everything just to help recoup costs on building this, because I bought this for $2,000. But selling at the FC09 helped me do this project and get everything set up. It helped me recoup some of my initial costs of kind of having bad luck twice on 2 different coupes. So I now drive a sweet wagon, which is awesome. I'll show you guys some outside the car footage later. But so that's this situation with the car. The second kind of interesting series of events, over the course of the last, I'd say probably 2 years, Bedlam has been going through not really an identity crisis, but originally it was a DIY shop plus service and custom. When Travis left, one of the owners, so the custom side stopped. So then it was still DIY and mechanic shop, and then we kind of restructured so that it was pretty much all mechanical, because most of our DIY customers eventually just became shop friends, and at that point we could use the space for other reasons or other purposes. So we went all mechanical, and that meant that my position, which was floating between everything, went down to mechanical and doing regular turning wrenches and fixing stuff. Well, James, who's the owner now, decided that he wanted to go in a different direction, not for the sake of the company, but his personal, career and ambitions and stuff. So he let me know that he was going to be taking a full-time position with another company. So I started looking for a new job, and it was kind of crazy because all of the jobs that I've had probably in the last, I'd say 7 years at least, maybe 8 years, has all been because of motorcycles. It's always because of I've met somebody, became friends, were introduced, that whole exchange. So like Chateau Lawn, when I was working there, Brian S1K was the one who introduced me to everybody and got me that position, essentially got me in the door. I was there for about a year-ish, 6-8 months, And then I found, Bedlam through another buddy of mine, Jerry, who I met through YouTube, just motorcycling and stuff around Athens. Got that whole, it was 4 years, I think, if not a little bit more, at Bedlam. And then, ironically enough, another friend of mine who I met through motorcycling, Ethan, got me in the door at the company that I work for now. So I now work for a civil engineering company doing LiDAR imagery analysis and producing topographic data sets for the rest of the engineers and design team for the company. And my wife puts it that I play with lasers as a day job now, which is kind of interesting. So, but effectively, what I do is Ethan goes out and flies a LiDAR drone, which shoots a bunch of lasers at the Earth, whatever we're trying to target, and then I process all of that information and create it into maps for our design teams to actually use. So that sparked a career change, obviously going into my degree. And I can't thank you enough, Ethan, if you're watching this. So I now commute to Atlanta every day, which is part of it. I mean, that's kind of the sacrifices you have to make. But it's 80 miles one way, and I do it 5 days a week. I'm putting 400 miles on my car every 2.5 days. Like, it's a lot of driving. So now that it was kind of a rush, because I knew that I was going to be getting a new job while I was at Bedlam. That was the eventual goal, and I wanted to rush and get this build done because it was a full. I mean, I touched everything in this car, and now I get to abuse it every week and have a good time and enjoy it. But all of that has now led us to needing to find a house. We were originally, anyways, it was in the plans. We were going to be with my parents for a little while and kind of get everything set up again for after we had Emma. And we stayed there a little bit longer than we expected. And then my stepdad ended up having some health issues, which led to his unfortunate passing. So we stayed there a little bit longer for the sake of trying to make sure that mom was okay and that we could help out around the house and handle all that stuff. So everyone is now at an even keel and ready to move on. My mom's looking at new houses and stuff now because she's no longer wants to be out in the sticks where we are. And the eventual result will be everyone will be moving closer towards Atlanta because my mom works for Turner and she'll need to be closer to Atlanta anyway. So in the next, hopefully less than 2 months, I will be a homeowner and I will not have to drive 80 something miles one way and hate everyone on the road. But new house means better internet, and I've already gotten a couple of quotes for different locations that we've looked at, which means I can get away from my 2.5 meg down, half a meg up. And if you guys know anything about uploading videos, half a meg up is like hammering nails in your eyeballs. It's terrible. Good old Windstream, bringing high-speed internet to the populace. So that'll mean I'll actually get to pick up the channel, which brings me to the main point of everything, catching you guys up. Motorcycling is obviously still a big factor, and I will return to that. That's a plan. That 2019 R3 is calling my name, and I know, for those of you who know me well enough and have been here long enough, an R1 has been like the goal, but I'm going to get my R1 fix with the Mini Cooper that I'm building, and buying a house lets me continue all of those projects, as well as acquiring a R3. So, being that motorcycling is not going to be a big, heavy focus anymore, I've kind of taken all of my skill sets that I've learned with Bedlam Works and fabrication and all that stuff, And I will be doing car stuff, and that's going to be pretty much my main focus from this point out. I've seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and I want it. I've seen so many different builds just across like all the manufacturers that it's just been the proper way to do things for the sake of like customization for expression, and being in motorcycles and doing customization that way. It was kind of it was kind of annoying because your customer base was either incredibly wealthy and ready to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a custom machine, or they were trying to do it budget as possible but still make something as custom as possible. And that's not, you can't pay somebody to do it that way. You need to do it yourself if you're going to be doing something custom and budget. So taking all of the skill sets and everything that I've learned and applying it to automotive stuff, I've also picked up a SolidWorks license, and I have SolidWorks until I think March of next year. Fingers crossed, and I think I found a way to do it, but I should be able to 3D image my car and build a wide body kit for it. And if I can do that, then that means I'm going to start getting into wide body, carbon fiber, aero, I mean, you name it. I'm going to go ham. But all that rests on getting a house. So once I get the house, I'll start getting everything set back up again, get back level and get back into the routine. And then we going to start building some shit. I'm really excited to do it. There's 90% of the reason why I got into Bedlam Works was to learn fabrication and be a part of something that is cool. Like I made that. That was the thing, was like I made that, and that's on somebody's bike. Like I made a C-pan for a guy who lives in Singapore, like for a custom CB bike that he did. I've done all over the United States. It's awesome to have that like feeling. And aluminum is a little bit different than carbon fiber, obviously, but it's still skill sets that I can transfer. So look for that. Hopefully soon. Hopefully the next time I upload will be I have a house. Woo! Yeah, sweet, awesome. But if it doesn't, I'm not dead. Clearly. For those of you who still want to follow just my normal stuff, Instagram has always been my place for kind of like consistent content. Whether it's just like, oh, that's a cool thing I want to share with people, or it's like, hey, I did this today, that was fun. You guys can always get me there at STKR_BOMBD. So it's the channel name with just an underscore in the middle of it. That's always active. I'm always posting stuff to it. And that'll help you guys, for some of you who are pretty much YouTube only, you guys can kind of catch up through there, some of the photos, and kind of keep track. I've got some build photos of this, and then this has also been put up on the Project Hodor build blog, if you guys want to go through some of those photos and stuff too. So, but alas, yeah, that's been the last 6 months-ish. And I will see you guys soon, hopefully.